Okay, here we go yet again. All right, this is the Midnight Skeptic, and I just had cataract surgery, so I kind of need to wear reading glasses so I can see my notes. Okay, here we go. You are listening to KPCA LP, Petaluma, California, at 103.3 FM and worldwide at www.kpca.fm. And this is the Midnight Skeptic. The views of the Midnight Skeptic are not, repeat, not necessarily the views of KPCA or any of its affiliates. Okay, like the intro said, the views of the Midnight Skeptic are not necessarily the views of KPCA, Petaluma Community Access, or any of its affiliates, although I'm sure that most of the people working down there are quite progressive, liberal, probably vote Democratic, as do I. Okay, and I guess I should say to my thousands and thousands of listeners out there that the Midnight Skeptic, me, is woke. W-O-K-E. I'm trying my best to make the term woke an accepted positive term, not the pejorative that evil MAGA heads and Republicans want it to be. Okay, let's go here. Shout outs. Okay, Anchor.fm, which disseminates Spotify all over the world. I just checked out my international viewers, and there's still a couple in the UK and Australia, one in New Zealand, 3 or 4 in the EU, and 2, there used to be 3, 2 in Canada, 1 still in Russia, and okay, so hi everybody around the world. Okay, locally, Nariman, Keith and Cody, Kevin and Lori, Tim Conrad, who's on vacation now and taking a lot of good pictures on his travels through the Southwest. Okay, in Sebastopol, Rich and Kathy, Tiburon, Dennis and Meg. Dennis is my audio engineer. Okay, in San Francisco, Yvonne Santos. Up to Sacramento, Dave Takach and Rosita. I hope you both are feeling well now. Rosie had a very bad condition of COVID-19 a couple of months ago. Okay, I hope she's over it and exercising. Okay, in Sacramento, Mickey Huff, who's a professor of history and communications at Diablo Valley College, and also is the godfather of Project Censored. And please, all my viewers should go to projectcensored.org and sign up for their newsletter. It's very interesting, and you get a lot of news that didn't make the news. Okay, and up in Sonora, Bob and Sandy Fisher. Bob, please take care of yourself. I'm going to give you a call as soon as I'm through recording this. And take care of yourself. And Martha, the nurse, wear your PPE. COVID-19 is not done up there. Okay. And Finnegan and Colleen, Bob Finnegan and Colleen. Finnegan was in my class up there, and I guess they listen in now and then. So I'm going to include them on future shout-outs. Finnegan, or Fig, as we call him, is having some heart checking done down in Modesto. And I wish him well. Take care of yourself. Okay. Darrell, Judy, Leonidas, Kathy Francis, and down in Mexico City, an ex-Sonora student, Rosie Lopez Negrete. Okay, and also Kathy Francis, Jennifer and Tiffany Gleason, and their dad, John Gleason. And then in Arizona, my brother Bran and his wife Mina and their daughter Andrea, who is also a nurse, and her husband Tim, and their 3 little terrorists. Take care of yourselves down there. And my brother Brandon is the inspiration for me concentrating on what, in my opinion, makes a MAGA head a MAGA head. Not every single Republican are MAGA heads, but the vast majority are. And I'll tell you what they have to believe or do or whatever to have the Midnight Skeptic call them a MAGA head. And that's not a compliment. Okay. Down in L.A., Jackie and Wayne Kolar and their daughters, Samantha and Melanie. And over in Arizona, Karina Hilliard, the snake removal lady. And Pacifica, Stan Gustafson, and Susan Miller, La Lefty, down there. In Arkansas, Shannon Reed, good luck with your new business. Health and massage therapist, and she's just opened, I think, a new location down there. I forget the town it's in, but she is an ex-Petaluma and a massage therapist over at, I forget the health spa over in Sonoma. Anyway, okay, over in Florida, Nelson and Ellis Lydell and Amelia Beamer, who is now in her new digs at New Smyrna Beach, Florida. Up to Raleigh-Durham, Dr. Dave Rubin, and up to Long Island, Geraldine Goldfinger. Okay, so very, very good news. And I've told my listeners that I'm going to start every program with good news. And I'm keeping my word. Okay, this is very, very good news. CFI, the Center for Inquiry in Amherst, New York. That's the parent company of the skeptical community. They published the Skeptical Inquirer magazine, which I've been subscribing to for, about 25 years, probably. Anyway, they started in 1976. Okay. What was the good news? Okay. They are essentially a consumer protection outfit, and specifically, they are suing Walmart and CVS on consumer fraud. Okay, the lawsuit is been allowed to proceed. Okay, the lawyers for Walmart and CVS are or have been trying to get the courts to throw out this lawsuit. Well, it failed. So the lawsuit is proceeding. And on Thursday, September 29th, the ruling came down. A 3-judge panel For the D.C., that's District of Columbia, Court of Appeals reversed the dismissal of suits the CFI brought against Walmart and CVS over claims that they deceived customers by marketing fake medicine as if it were real. And we're talking about homeopathy here. Okay, Judge Phyllis D. Thompson, writing for the unanimous court, ruled that placement on a store shelf does, in fact, communicate information to customers of a product's similarity to other shelved products. CVS and Walmart were placing homeopathic pain remedies next to Advil and Tylenol, thus making customers think that these homeopathic products worked as pain amelioration. Not true. Homeopathic is bunk. I've talked about homeopathy before, how it can't work according to scientific laws. The theory behind homeopathy is such that there's no way it can work. It's essentially just water. In fact, Walmart makes its own Walmart branded homeopathic remedies, and they make tons of profit on these things because all they are is essentially water. Okay. Fantastic news for the Midnight Skeptic. Information from 500,000 records in the UK biobank. People who drink 2 to 3 cups of coffee each day, yes, that's me, but I drink it all in the morning. Doesn't matter. 2 or 3 cups a day of coffee tend to live longer and exhibit less cardiovascular disease compared with those who abstain from coffee. It's an intriguing association that scientists are gearing up research for. Are you listening to this, Mormons out there who think that caffeine is the devil's chemical? I was over in Hawaii on a vacation about 25 years ago, long before my wife passed away. And we went to this South Sea island, Polynesia theme park. And, they have a snack bar there, and I just wanted to get a Coke. And they didn't serve Coke. They served caffeine-free Coke. I didn't make a big deal about it because, the clerk behind the counter was just some, ignorant Mormon girl who didn't want to question anything. So anyway, I just walked away. But you can't get coffee in a Mormon-run restaurant. They probably claim religious freedom to not serve coffee. I don't think I've heard that challenged. Okay, more good news. 3 cheers for Virginia high school students. On 9/27, September 27th, thousands of students walked out of classes at more than 90 different schools. Why? To protest MAGA-head Governor Glenn Youngkin's anti-LGBTQ guidelines. And this is reported by Blue Virginia. I guess that's a Democratic organization. I haven't Googled Blue Virginia, but I assume that's who it is. Okay, over 12,000 students across 100 Virginia schools. Okay, I got two different figures here. One source said more than 90 schools, and this other source said 100 schools. Anyway, it's a lot of schools. Walked out to oppose Republicans and Glenn Youngkin's attempt to legislate away LGBTQ youth. Bathroom bills are back in vogue. Young transgender girls are not being allowed to play on sports teams. And I've gone into that before too. Once a boy not transitions, but enters puberty, then his athletic muscles develop a lot faster and better than girls' muscles. That's just a fact. So young boys who are having gender dysphoria and begin to view themselves as girls, not boys, up until the age of, I would say, about 12 or 13, boys and girls should be able to play together on youth sports anyway. And the young boys who identify as female and transition socially, they let their hair grow, they wear girls' clothes, and want to play on girls' teams should be allowed to. Okay, in the opinion of the Midnight Skeptic, after puberty sets in for boys, then the sexes should be separated in sports. So anyway, I've talked on this topic before. But Republican, ignorant MAGA-head Republicans don't see it that way. A lot of these hate-filled bills that have been passed in Republican-controlled states specify K through 12, well, meaning kindergarten. That's the K part of this. I think, in my humble opinion, that up through, let's say, 7th or 8th grade, boys who are suffering, not suffering, but just have gender dysphoria and begin identifying as girls. And we're not talking that many anyway. Less than 1% of boys have gender dysphoria at those ages. So it shouldn't matter. And parents who give love and encouragement to their little boys who begin to identify as girls should not have to fear the child abuse police in Texas, that hate-filled MAGA-head state. Okay, I'm way off my notes here. Okay. Okay, high school students walk out. It's very touching to see YouTube news films about these high school students walking out in support of their LGBTQ friends and colleagues. I really honor them for doing that. Okay. Okay, let's see. Bathrooms, sports teams, interactions with teachers, meaning pronouns, and administrators usually are quite conservative. Most administrators, the suit-wearing blockages to progress, would all be subject to these new guidelines, which were published September 16th by VDOE, the Virginia Department of Education. Okay, there's a new group that has sprung out in protesting of these guidelines, MAGA guidelines. It's called the Pride Liberation Project, which consists of over 500 plus member student-run organization of queer students and their allies. Fairfax County, Virginia, they've been able to get back into school libraries 2 novels, of course, genderqueer being one of them. I've talked about her before, a local girl who wrote genderqueer, Maya Kobabe. She is, she calls herself genderqueer, non-binary, and asexual, and she's like 32 or 33 now. But anyway, genderqueer and lawn boy are back in high school libraries. And what's prompted this, one of the things that prompted this was this Pride Liberation Project. Student run, and they may have a sympathetic teacher advising them, but essentially it's completely student run, and they all refer to themselves as queer students and their allies. Okay. Okay, got to take a break and take a sip of grape juice. All right. Geez, I've got a lot of good news. Okay, more good news. President Biden today. When I started this program, I forgot to tell you that it's the Midnight Skeptic show number 89, and it'll be broadcast at 9 p.m. this coming Sunday, the 9th, on KPCA-LP 103.3 FM, and worldwide, www.kpca.fm. And as soon as I get through recording this, I'm going to put it up on YouTube as soon as I can. So that's one of the things I forgot to say. I didn't even write it down on my notes, but maybe I'm getting to the point in my old age that I have to write things down, or I just forget to say them. Okay, where was I? Okay, good news. President Biden today, which is the 6th. Happy birthday, Dennis. Okay, the 6th of October. Today, he pardoned all prior federal offenses of simple possession of marijuana. And there's about 13 or 14 states that have completely legalized recreational marijuana. And personally, I have never been a smoker of it. I did try it back in college, and I didn't particularly care for the effects of it back then. And then back then, we were having to sneak around to do it. It's just the effect that smoking a joint on me, I was a bit slow. Slower than I am now. Meaning when I was in a conversation with a group of other toking students, they would be having a conversation, and I would have in my head a very snappy addition to the conversation or a snappy comeback. And by the time I was ready to say something, the conversation had moved on to some new topic. It was not a good feeling. And anyway, I did smoke a little bit back in my college days, and but not lately. I'm just not into that. I'm not into a lot of drinking either, although I did go to Lagunitas a couple of days ago, and because I hadn't been there in about 2 years, and some of the old friends that I had made, servers and bartenders, were still working there, and they recognized me and they gave me a free beer. Thank you, Charlie, and thank you, Sebastian. See you again in about a week. Okay, where was I? Okay, marijuana. Okay, the failed war on drugs, especially when it comes to marijuana. Hopefully, it's over. Hopefully, states where marijuana is still considered a gateway drug to the hard stuff, meaning Republican controlled states. Hopefully they will follow suit and start, pardoning or releasing and wiping the records clean of these people who were just busted for possessing marijuana. Usually it's in the South, and that's just another excuse to imprison more blacks. You know, I don't want to get off on this topic, but that was one of the unfortunate results of our war on drugs, began by President Nixon in 1972. And, and then, of course, southern states will pass laws saying that ex-felons cannot vote again, ever, in their lives. And I did a segment on this on Florida's, I don't want to get into that again, but Florida's laws changed about ex-felons voting and caused some confusion and renewed arrests for voter fraud. Oh, God. There was about 19 people that were arrested for that. Ron DeSantis, I hope he pays a hefty price for his political stunt, utilizing these Venezuelan refugees. Anyway, okay, that's a whole new topic. I don't want to get off onto that now. Okay, kind of bad news. Radio station KGO from San Francisco, it's 810 on your dial, went off the air today at 10 o'clock. And they were a news talk format, and I used to listen to them more than I have lately. I think the last time I actually tuned in, KGO was, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. I used to listen to Ron Owens and other hosts occasionally, and they've gone away. And on Monday, which would be the 10th, they're going to come back in a new format of some sort. This is too new of a story for them to know what they're going to be, or for anybody to know what they're going to be. They kind of, in the last, 4 or 5 years, 6 years, have kind of drifted a bit rightward in the leanings of some of their radio show hosts. Ron Owens was always kind of a middle-of-the-road guy. And anyway, be eager to know what KGO radio in San Francisco comes back as. Okay. Good news. Yes, it's good news. Okay. Senator Ben Sasse, a Republican senator of Nebraska, is resigning his seat soon, very soon, because he's offered a position of president of the University of Florida. Okay, well, if that all really comes to pass, then that's one less Republican senator. Are you happy for him, Mitch McConnell? Okay. Um, I don't know if the upcoming election, November 8th, in which we're going to vote out all Republicans, no matter what they're running for, I don't know if Nebraska has a senatorial contest coming up, but they'll, if Ben Sass resigns, I don't know, very soon, they're going to have some kind of a special election because the governor gets to appoint his replacement. I'm not quite sure how Nebraska deals with resignations in their senators. Okay. Bad news. Rest in peace, Sachin Littlefeather. Okay, if you remember, she was the one who, back in 1973, when Marlon Brando won the Oscar for his portrayal of Vito Corleone in The Godfather, he didn't want to accept the Oscar because of his sympathy for how Native Americans are portrayed in cinema. Okay, well, Sachin Littlefeather represented him, went up on stage when Marlon Brando was called, and she put her hand up, indicating that she was not going to accept the Oscar, and gave a short speech about how Native Americans are portrayed in Hollywood, which is not good. And she was booed by a number of attendees of the Oscar ceremony. And she was very recently issued an apology by the, I don't know, AFTRA, American Federation of Movie Actors, Movie and Radio, I don't know, I forget what that is. But anyway, Hollywood issued her an apology, long overdue. She lived down in Novato, which is, I don't know, about a 15-minute drive south of here. And anyway, she grew up in Fairfax, I think, and she may have gone to Sir Francis Drake High School. I'm not sure about that, but if you're a high school age person in Fairfax, well, that's where you would go to high school. Okay. Okay, MAGA heads, and I'll talk about the MAGA head phenomena a little bit later in this show. Time check. Okay, I've been ranting for about a half an hour. Okay, got plenty of time. Another sip. My voice is getting dry again. Okay, MAGA heads keep getting more and more ridiculous. A Pennsylvania school district has now banned Girls Who Code. It's a science book. It's a science book that, it's a series of books that there's an organization called Girls Who Code, and it was by Reshma Saujani. And it's the Central York School District. And it appeared, the reason it was banned was it appeared on a diversity resource reading list. And I don't know how it got on there. I guess the Girls Who Code book, which is intended to encourage girls to get into the computer coding occupational pathway to becoming a tech person. Okay. But anyway, this Girls Who Code series of books appeared, and I don't know why, but it appeared on a diversity resource reading list. And of course, MAGA heads don't want diversity. They hate that word. Okay. Parents objected to the entire list. And Girls Who Code was on the list. Now, I understand that since then, that particular series of books, Girls Who Code, have been put back on the library shelves. And the Central York School District has gone about their safe business, not having to read about our real history, not having to read about LGBTQ kids, not having to put up with dealing with kids who are just a little bit different. They don't want to do that. Okay. Anyway, good news for lonely MAGA heads. And as far as I'm concerned, real hardcore MAGA heads deserve to be lonely. And that's a mean thing to say, but they deserve all the bad things that happen to them. Anyway, okay. Good news for lonely MAGA heads. Peter Thiel, he's a multi-billionaire that lives down here in Silicon Valley. His new dating app called The Right Stuff has now launched. Okay. MAGA head women, oh God, and various Karens, and I know that's an unfair thing to call MAGA head women, but Karens have gotten a reputation of being afraid of black guys walking their dogs in Central Park or barbecuing in an Oakland park, and they call the police. Okay. Unfortunately, the name Karen has kind of stuck on these horrible MAGA head women. Anyway, okay. MAGA head women and Karens describe what they are looking for in a man, a real man. And one of the quotes was, "I like the alpha male vibe," one woman on this site said. I guess they were using her to advertise the app, the dating app. Anyway, "I like the alpha male vibe," one woman said. And then, quote, "No Democrats," they all said in the advertisement for The Right Stuff. So I know almost with 100% certainty that I don't have any MAGA heads listening to me. So I can rant and make fun of them to my heart's content. But if there are MAGA heads that disagree with me, please send all hate mail and death threats to the Midnight Skeptic at gmail.com. I'm eagerly awaiting my first death threat. Please, somebody out there send me a death threat. Okay. GOP hypocrisy news. And of course they're hypocrites, but they don't care. They don't care. Okay. In 2021, 538 children ages 17 and younger legally obtained abortions in Ohio. Well, they can't anymore. Including 57 who were younger than 15 years old. The state does not track how many abortions were performed on victims of rape and incest. The age of consent in Ohio is 16. So those girls who are younger than 15 cannot legally give consent. So they were all, in effect, raped. Okay, but they can't get abortions. So MAGA-head Republicans don't want to give free lunches to 8th grade girls. 8th grade, those are 13. The MAGA-head Republicans don't want to spend the money giving free lunches to fourth graders, but they certainly want fourth grade girls to have to carry their rapist babies to full term. It's what God wants. Okay, now at this point in my rant, I use the term MAGA head in its most pejorative sense. So my brother Brandon asked me, does anybody who disagrees with my views get the epithet MAGA head placed on them by me? And usually that's correct. But it is more than mere disagreement. I've said before to all of you out there that I am still a registered Republican. And when I first registered to vote, I registered a Republican because they were, at that time, sort of in alignment with my views. And another thing that moved me to register as a Republican was the late 60s, the 60s and late 60s anti-war protests and Black Power protests. And I was not of that frame of mind at that time. I've evolved, and to me, Democrats were, one, long hairs, militant blacks, people that just didn't want to work and get government benefits. Well, okay. My attitudes have changed on all of those things. Okay, there aren't very many Republicans left that I can have a reasonable discussion with about things like the size of government, whether government should promulgate all these business regulations, whether we should attempt to balance the budget each year and, dare I say, begin to pay down the national debt a little bit, whether government should interfere in the conduct of foreign trade, tariff issues, things like that. Reasonable people can have these kind of discussions. But ever since the Reagan years, and I'm guilty, the very first time that Ronald Reagan ran, 1980, I voted for him. And I regret that. But the downfall of the Republican Party began with him. And, I liked him. And I think a lot of that liking was as a result of his image and his persona and his nice guy, how he presents himself, giving speeches and, dare I say, on television and in the movies. Okay, I was snockered. Now, Ronald Reagan, I still think, is basically, he's a nice guy. But he got used by the Republican Party, and the Republican Party around that time, the late 70s, early 80s, got taken over by right-wing Christian evangelicals, Southern Baptists. Um, what are some other Pentecostals? The weird Bible churches, and those who deny women's ability to preach. And I am anti-religion, of all religions, because all religions, in my opinion, and I can back it up, are misogynistic. And the Republican Party was the party of arresting all dope dealers, and a lot of them should be arrested. But it was the War on Drugs Party. It was the anti-gay party. Ever since then, okay, there was remember Proposition 8 here in California, the Briggs Initiative that had it passed, all gay and not quite masculine enough or feminine enough teachers would have been fired and not hired in the first place. Well, fortunately, that Republican-sponsored bill went down in flames here in California. The Republican Party, since the Reagan era, has always been anti-LGBTQ, has been enthralled to the trickle-down theory of economics. Remember the Laffer curve? That worked like a charm. The gap between the filthy rich, 1%, and all the rest of us have done nothing but widened. Well, where's all this trickle-down money? Well, it's not here. Anyway, okay, those are issues, economic issues and political issues that can be argued about or discussed with real Republicans. I don't consider myself a Republican anymore. Even mainstream Democrats are a bit too centrist for me. Okay, so to be a MAGA head, first and foremost, you have to be part of the cult of the orange sociopathic bloat bag. And my brother is not. He's not that. You have to own an actual MAGA head hat. And then in your wardrobe are all these American flag wearing apparel. You have to be a gun nut. My brother is not. And when they say Second Amendment, we know what they mean. Unrestricted ownership of firearms with no background checks, no nothing. And you have to worship at the head of the NRA, Wayne LaPierre. When, the only thing that will stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. That guy. Okay. You have to, of course, be anti-LGBTQ. You have to be in favor of banning books. And you have to be afraid of learning our real history in this country. It's, CRT. Everything you can label as CRT that makes our snowflake kids a little bit uncomfortable. And feeling guilty about being white. Okay, teachers, I would venture to say that 98% of teachers, if they teach their history right with all its warts, are not going to make their students feel discomfort or ashamed of being white. That's just a made-up thing by Christopher Rufo, and I've done segments on this. Um, okay, I will not swear on air because I've already lost one program to YouTube when they took me off. But anyway, uh, those are the things that make a true MAGA-head. And I remember a news segment where these, and I think this was in Pennsylvania, where a bunch of MAGA heads were at a school board meeting, and one of the members of the school board was just in his car driving home, and this MAGA head stuck his head in the window and said, "We know where you live." Okay? Death threats to poll workers, MAGA heads. People who are actually running for office that deny that Joe Biden actually won the 2020 election, MAGA heads. Okay? That's my definition of a MAGA head. And I questioned whether Tom Cotton, Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas, was a MAGA head. I called him that on a Facebook posting, and then my brother said, I know what he meant by this. He said, "Are all people that just disagree with you MAGA heads?" Well, I'm trying to explain that now. And I'm now going to explain why Tom Cotton is a MAGA head. Okay. Why I, the Midnight Skeptic, call Tom Cotton a MAGA head. One of the things that my brother said was that he isn't one of the election deniers, and he served in the military as a ranger and won the Bronze Star. Well, okay, as far as the military thing goes, General Michael Flynn, in the Orange Sociopathic Bloat Bags administration, he won many medals, including the Bronze Star. He was our God, I'm having a brain freeze on the title that he had for a couple of months in the Bloat Bags administration. But okay, and as far as his military service, he's rightly proud of being posted to Iraq and Afghanistan, and he did go through the Rangers School. But there is some dispute about whether he was in the 75th Ranger Unit that was actually in Afghanistan. I didn't really go into his entire Armed Forces record, but I think he was in the 101st Airborne, which is good enough. I mean, he's a Ranger. Okay. He gets to wear the patch. Okay. Tom Cotton said to gays, "Get perspective. At least they don't hang you." And now he's talking about, hanging them. Okay, he's talking about Iran and their horrible anti-LGBTQ government over there. And the they that he's referring to are Republican politicians in Ohio and Indiana that were getting ready to pass some anti-LGBTQ laws. Okay, arguing for anti-gay laws in Indiana and Arkansas, the hanging was in reference to Iran, and arguing for a religious exemption law, meaning florists and cake bakers and wedding planners don't have to serve LGBTQ customers because of their religion, their sincerely held religious beliefs. That's the religious exemption that he was arguing for. Okay, right there, he's a MAGA head. Okay, although key GOPers are lining up in support of transgender military service, Senator Tom Cotton said he has to wait for an ongoing Department of Defense study. Well, it's been studied, and I'm not sure of the transgender. We're going back 4 or 5 years now. I'm not sure of the status of transgender military people. But Senator Tom Cotton criticized efforts to pass legislation that would protect same-sex marriage. In other words, the Defense of Marriage law that is working its way through our government now. Okay. The bill passed the House after the Supreme Court of the U.S., our right-wing Supreme Court, overturned Roe v. Wade. He is against inclusion of gender identity as a protected category in the Title IX law. You know, that goes back to 1972, Title IX. You know, equality of educational opportunity, equality of women's sports, that law. Okay, I guess gender identity was not mentioned in the original law, but there are attempts to include it. He's against that. Okay. He was one of 31 GOP MAGA heads who co-sponsored the Constitutional Concealed Carry Reciprocity Act. Okay, he has an A rating from the NRA. Oh boy. I'm going to have to cut this short. Okay. Cotton shares the orange sociopathic bloatbag's views on immigration. In January 2018, demonstrators were arrested outside his office for protesting his DACA views. Cotton lied in a CPAC speech in 2021 where he criticized Democrats and Joe Biden's immigration policies, claiming they have halted deportations for all illegal aliens, murderers, rapists, terrorists, and MS-13 gang members. PolitiFact checked that statement, and it's false. In other words, he lied. And then Cotton has said Roe v. Wade should be overturned. And he called it a victory for unborn children. Okay, there's other things that I needed to go into today, but unfortunately, the time is nigh for playing my out music. We'll just have to wait.
You have been listening
next week's show
to the Midnight
catch
Skeptic
up on these other very interesting topics that I was
LP,
going to rant
Petaluma,
about
California
today.
And we're at 103.3 on the FM dial and worldwide at www.kpca.fm. Support community radio at patreon.com/Petaluma Community Access. And remember, think critically, think logically, but live joyously, and most importantly, pet your cats.
Okay, that's it for another week of ranting. This is actually good for my mental health to get all this off my chest. So I will see you again next week.